What an amazing run it was for Matt Painter and the men's hoops team as the Boilers made it to the national title game for the first time since 1969, posting a program record 34 wins. Zach Edey named National Player of the Year for a second straight season, and most importantly, Purdue exercised its recent postseason demons. No doubt, a very different feel to this offseason for Coach Painter and his program, but hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Well, it's felt great because I haven't been in the portal. I think more than anything, that's what we've been able to do is, sign guys in the fall and trying our best in today's landscape to stay a development program where we're, bringing guys in, developing them, all the way through their careers. Obviously, we had the National Player of the Year that was with us for 4 years. So we've had a great spring. Obviously, we came up a little bit short, but it was a great run.
Speaking of that, two-time reigning National Player of the Year, they had the grade 13 concept in Canada. You couldn't appeal to the NCAA and see if they could apply that to college for one more year?
No doubt. Make you a better coach. That's for damn sure. So, but no, he, really worked hard and put in a lot of time and very, very competitive. And then our staff did a good job of piecing, the guys around him and putting a lot of skill with him.
I thought you had one of the greatest press conference comments in history at the NCAA this year when someone asked about the criticism of Zach being good just because he's tall.
Right.
And you said that anyone who says that should have to take a class and prove that they should actually be able to cover college basketball. It is so true. How much more do you think Zach's accomplishments and his career will be appreciated maybe as time goes on a little bit?
Yeah, no question. I think as more time goes on and you see it, it's just like how great Boo Boo he was for Northwestern, right? Maybe the greatest player in school history, breaks the career scoring record. Zach breaks the career scoring record and the career rebound record. So to be able to beat Rick Mount's record, that held for, 50 years, 55 years, whatever it might be, but also Joe Barry Carroll's rebound record in the same season, get the most wins in a season, have the best finish in a season, and then being able to be a two-time National Player of the Year. And the names that got associated with him as he did that, from a Bill Walton to a Ralph Sampson to Elvin Hayes, you had to pinch yourself. And, Zach has a familiarity to some of those guys, but not knowing how good when you go by a Cassie Russell or an Elvin Hayes or, just guys of Walt Bellamy, just guys of that magnitude that are, a lot older that were just, special. It really puts him in some unbelievable categories.
I think one other misconception maybe about your program, and you've certainly had some tremendous bigs, is that you're always going to run everything through your bigs. And people obviously forget about the run with Carson Edwards a couple of years ago and then other teams before that. So how much of this coming year will be adjusting to something of a new style with the nucleus that you have coming back?
Yeah, our usage through ball screens is actually more than the post. Now, you can have a possession where you have a ball screen that leads into a post up, but Braden Smith, had more assists in a season than anybody in the history of the Big Ten, which is a huge statement for all the good guards that we've had. Fletcher Loyer started, for 2 years. So to be able to have those two guys back, as building blocks. But, we use a lot of actions, even though we might go into the post, through ball screen action, and really just trying to, find the strengths of our team and then really just kind of mold it that way in terms of what we ran. You mentioned Carson Edwards and the run we had with him in 2019. We didn't play a lot of post-up basketball then. Him and Ryan Klein got a lot of the action, and I think you'll start to see more of that. But we also got good post guys coming. Trey Kaufman-Wren, can score on the block. So I think we're going to have a pretty good blend, of guys again.
Matt, when you start to think about the way that the Big Ten changes now, it's not just 4 more teams, it's 4 teams that are located out here on the West Coast. How does it change what you need to do in terms of logistics with your program, getting everything kind of dotted and crossed off the way you want it so that you can make another run this coming season?
Well, I think for us, just going west one time, I think it's going to be much harder for the 4 schools that are coming in because they have to come east so much. So that's just going to be a road trip for us. And get excited about it, and hopefully win a couple games.
Get some In-N-Out burger.
Get some In-N-Out burger. You're thinking right. And so when you come out and you're able to do it, you got to keep it as a business trip. But it's going to be exciting. I've never been in the 4 arenas that we're going to go to. So as a coach, and you've been in it for over 30 years, to be able to come out and be able to play 4 schools and get to different arenas and see different things is pretty cool.
Never been in Pauley?
Never. Never been outside of it, but never been inside.
Pretty cool trip. You mentioned the transfer portal and the fact that you just don't use it very often. You haven't had to. Obviously, Lance was a notable exception this past year. What has allowed you, whether it's the way you run things, the way your staff recruits, to kind of stay away from that so far?
I think the combination of it, and that's a good way of starting with it, is just how we recruit and how we look for the right fit. We're all looking for that right fit, but there's so much turnover now to where when guys have 4 or 5 people leave, now getting into the portal, they can't do that as much. They try their best in a short amount. It's like cramming for a test. You know, when you recruit a high school guy, you know, it ends up being, you know, a year or 2 years. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter, but more times you're very thorough. And you dig into it, and you're no different than the NBA. People don't realize the time the NBA puts in their evaluations to try to see, you know, the pros, the cons. Is this guy worth it? And I talk to our guys about, like, when someone's going to invest $3, $4, or $5 million in you in the NBA, you know, they're going to look at you no different than looking at a stock. And you want to see your 1-year return, your 3-year return, your 5-year return, your 10-year return, and you want to see your money compound. You know, so for us, when we look at this, we look at it from an education standpoint, we look from a fit standpoint. And if you didn't play basketball, like, where would you go to school? You know, we still think Purdue, you know, would be the school that you chose. If that happens, then we think we got a good fit. We look for skill. Obviously, we've been able to get good size. So anytime you have success in a certain position, you know, recruits are going to look at that. You know, how is this going to work for me? Well, we've had guys that have had success that are just like you. And a lot of times coaches say that, but it's not always, you know, 100% true. So we've tried to just keep with that model and getting good size and getting good ball handling guards and getting a lot of skill and then having that blend. I think, you know, just grabbing talent and trying to figure it out, we all do that to a degree, but more than anything, kind of looking at their production. You know, they come to your place and they're a bad free throw shooter, they're probably going to stay a bad free throw shooter. You know, if they take care of the basketball, they're probably going to take care of the basketball. If you rebound in high school, you probably rebound in college. So looking at their stats, really digging into who they are, and, you know, and how are they? You know, have they played at 4 high schools and 8 AAU teams? That's probably not our guy. You know, it doesn't mean you can't leave and transfer 1 time or 2 times and still not have success at our program. But a lot of times, you know, you can look at patterns and they're going to follow those patterns.
So how honest do you have to be with some of these guys? Because I think of, like, your current roster. Trey, probably have to tell, hey, you're not going to get a lot of minutes right off the bat. Cam Heidi, super athlete. Listen, you're going to get there, but probably later in the year or next year. Same thing with Miles Colvin, even though I know he obviously has the legacy at Purdue. I'm assuming this means that you and your staff have to go in and say, we love you, but it may take a while.
Yeah, well, I think you'd be honest and say, you know, you have that opportunity to come in and compete. Braden Smith started as a freshman. You know, Fletcher Loyer started as a freshman. Eatwan Moore started as a freshman. Robbie Hummel started as a freshman. Juwan Johnson started as a freshman. Caleb Swanigan started as a freshman. Vince Edwards started as a freshman. So you reel off all those guys it's worked for, then you get to the guys that, like you're mentioning, that maybe takes a year or 2 to get to that point. We still redshirt guys when they're in that position. To sit there and have somebody be your 9th man and really think they're going to be happy as a true freshman, I think you're fooling yourselves. But be honest with them and tell them. But I don't tell them that stuff up front. I tell them that they got to compete. I don't want you to come into our program in June and say, well, I'm redshirting. I want you to come in at that point and say, man, I'm going to compete to start. I'm going to compete to play major minutes. And then when we get to there, end of October, early November, now we have to have some hard conversations. But if you're just honest with them, the thing I always tell them in recruiting is, if you become one of our top 2 or 3 scorers, we're gonna run things for you. We're gonna circle the wagons around you. If you don't, you're gonna have to blend into a role right there. And that's basketball. Whether that's in high school, whether that's in college, whether that's in the pros, that's just the way it is. So if you set the table for them right there and you don't whisper the sweet nothings to them, and now if you get them, now they're sitting there like, okay, they've been honest, you know, from day one. They've shot me straight. They haven't told me, hey, you're going to start, you're going to play minutes, we're going to run this for you. Then they get there and somebody's beating them out and they don't get that. That's not fair to the kid. So being straightforward is going to help you and give you the best chance.
Lastly, I think you and I have mentioned this before during interviews. You gave us Robbie Hummel. You gave us Rayfel Davis. Who's the next Boilermaker to come and be a broadcast star?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because you also listed a lot of guys that spent some time in the NBA, and they'd probably rather be in the NBA than our studios.
There you go. There you go. No question about it. No, obviously seeing Coach Weber and seeing Rayfel and seeing Rob, it's interesting. You know, we all kind of speak the same language there, so it's interesting to hear their vernacular and go forward. But I don't don't know. I know Fletcher's excited about, being a professional and doing the best that he can and going forward, but he'd be pretty good. He'd be pretty good in the broadcast.
Right, we'll keep tabs on him. And I like that too, because I'll probably be retired by the time he's ready to do this. So that works out perfect timing-wise.
There you go.
Matt, we appreciate the time.
All right, thank you.